Welcome to day 76 of Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn, here in beautiful Euclid, I think is how you pronounce the name.
It's almost kind of like halfway through the second half of Breaking Dawn. We got another 25 days, another 5 weeks of shooting, but getting ready for the first shot. It's a little tide's coming in.
We shot at the same beach in Tofino that the other movies had shot at and got really lucky. It was a tough scene to do in a short time, but I remember that as really being one of our more blessed days.
It's been awesome working with the pack throughout this whole experience.
Me and the rest of the Wolfpack guys are all really, really tight-knit, close friends, so it's super exciting having everybody back.
It's like a family reunion.
It's a good place to be with brothers. With your brothers.
How do you do this? They are so silly and goofy, and they're awesome.
I get to hang out with the guys, which is always a pleasure.
Let's see, we got the boys over here.
Play a little footy ball. That's how we roll.
I asked Bill Condon if we're gonna be doing crazy flips and kicking it like with CG special effects stuff. And he's like, no, they're not gonna be any super soccer.
Whenever the Wolfpack's on set, it gets a little crazier.
We're gonna go, shirtless in this one. I wonder how cold it's gonna be right beside the beach with all the wind blowing on us.
Here we go again!
The only thing meaningful here really is Taylor, Julia, and the kids looking toward him, you know?
B-Mark. 562
Nice sunny day, nice sunny day, nice.
And action!
Maybe they'll say she was in a car crash. Or tripped and fell off a cliff.
Maybe being any kind of happy is better than being miserable about someone you can't have.
Good! Tails right!
It's a lovely day. The sun is out. No rain at all. It's not cold.
Still raining.
The Wolfpack seems to bring out the best in the weather conditions. I mean, hail, snow, really crazy rain, pouring fake rain over real rain.
There's a lot of wind going on right now. There's a lot of cuddling, a lot of hand warmers, a lot of shivering, a lot of goosebumps.
We had like this little heater on the side. It kind of kept us a little bit warm, and we had these huge parkas on.
I learned my lesson last time, and I've got like 6 layers on under my wardrobe. And that's helping. Unlike Boo Boo, who is shirtless today.
Underneath our tank tops, we'll have shirts on. Like, they cut them so you can't see the edges of the shirt. Then even under my shorts, I'm wearing these like really thick, like tight shorts that keep me really warm. It's still pretty cold outside though, but I'm glad I have them on.
Going back and forth from being very hot to very cold, it's probably, we were like popping like vitamin C's like you wouldn't believe.
It was tough, Again, I was kind of in awe of like what good sports all these actors were.
We have a tsunami advisory in effect here. It hit Tokyo. We don't know what hit Hawaii yet. So we're trying to get the rest of the crew out of Dodge right now. Going to wait it out on high ground.
Having survived whatever that storm was in Brazil, then we go to this great hotel in Tofino and get the call at 5 o'clock in the morning that we have to evacuate because the tsunami is going to hit the other coast.
The alleged wave that is heading this direction is due to whatever it may be, whether it's 2 inches or 20 feet, is due to hit within the next 15 minutes.
There's been warnings all over the other countries, Australia, Malaysia. We had a warning here, so we're delayed. But I think we'll be fine. I think we'll be all right.
We were evacuated from our hotel at like 6 a.m. and everybody was just sort of hanging around not knowing what was going to happen.
It was one of those memorable things where we're all waiting for this thing that obviously, very fortunately, never happened. People got less sleep was all.
All right, folks, that's a wrap here on the island.
wolves have changed a bit from movie to movie. When we went into the first one, there wasn't very much time, so it was like version 1. And then as we got to move it into Eclipse, and then finally into the Breaking Dawn movies, we actually got to really refine the way that they looked in ways that we don't get to do with a character normally.
It's a real balance between look and technology, and because we've been working on this franchise for such a protracted period of time, we're able to improve, the look from show to show.
In this case, our directors were changing each time, our visual effects supervisors were changing each time.
Chris Weitsky was very interested in sort of these anthropomorphic wolves, and I think David Slade had a greater interest in wolves that weren't as human.
They started a New Moon with sort of being timber wolf based and appropriately ragged, because they've been traipsing through the forest and stuff like that. So we wanted to make sure they look a little bit matted. And on the third movie, on Eclipse, the director really wanted them to be a lot more cleaned up, a lot more groomed. And then on this one, Bill and everybody sort of wanted to go back to the sort of ragged looking wolves.
We put a real focus on the reality of what it's like for these creatures to be going through this muddy forest all the time and making sure that they had a grit to them and a sense of being lived in.
I think this was the first time we put mud on their paws, so they got a little bit more muddy when they roll around the ground, furs flying all over the place, and they want to have this sort of lived-in look.
I kind of based it on what a scene demanded, because these scenes have so much emotional content, It did feel like we didn't want to be constricted to just a realistic view of wolves, but you wanted to be constantly aware of their animal nature.
There were two major sequences on this show. One was the wolves in the lumberyard, kind of chatting it up and being wolf-like, and the other was the big fight with Cullens. So Phil sort of led the charge with the wolves in the lumberyard, and I took on the big fight at the end.
The lumberyard was tricky in that it was a very different kind of a scene. For most of these things, there's a great deal of action, and what the wolves are doing in the lumberyard scene is mostly having a dialogue.
We have real enemies to fight tonight. Tonight?
When Bill presented the script to us, he said, well, I've kind of got a problem here because I've got a scene with a bunch of talking wolves, and I don't want an animated movie to break out in the middle of my film.
I mean, we have a 3-minute scene with no human figures, with no actors. You really had to be able to tell who everybody was, and that became another challenge of making sure that you understand who each one was when you're focusing on them.
In the books, they talk with telepathy. So how are we gonna create a scene of the wolves interacting with each other, yet they have dialogue, but they don't have lip sync? How are we gonna tell who's talking?
And as they got deeper and deeper into it, Bill and Jenny realized that they could just jettison like half the dialogue in the scene, really played a lot better.
We have to protect the tribe.
We had a basic idea of what the blocking would be, so we went out and we storyboarded it ourselves.
My job is to take the script and translate it into something visual, basically a guideline for the people on set to be able to know, oh, we're shooting this shot, now we're shooting this shot, this is a medium, this is a close-up, this is a wide shot.
Will is the first line of interpretation on the script, so, it's just a bunch of words. He'll go through a whole sequence and make 40, 50 drawings, and then I'll grab those and start to time them out. And the minute I see, this doesn't seem like it would cut here, or maybe this would go here, I start to flop shots, put camera moves on them, and we work together to kind of get the storyboards to tell our interpretation of the script.
And then we'll look at it all like a poorly animated film with a lot of long holds, but it gives us an idea of the timing and the pacing and the shot count and whatnot.
And then after seeing the storyboards, they found a location, and they took extensive photographs and did a survey there. So then they brought that back, and then we started doing previs. So based on the boards, based on the actual location, we started to shape the scene.
Pre-visualization, which is very low-resolution CG animation, and you can take still photographs and video, and you can kind of incorporate all this stuff together. And with dialogue and music, you pretty much know what's going on. That's quite helpful today, especially with a tight deadline.
The schedule was like really, really tight, so we had to plan everything, super well, so we could just get in and get out. It was mostly the logistics of planning. Shooting all went, pretty well.
Working with Phil Tippett, who was going to go up and supervise the shoot for those shots, was really fantastic because not only were we be able to get the animation that was going to be shot, we could actually have exact camera measurements, we could know exactly how big the set needed to be, so we solved a lot of production problems up front.
Because we boarded it, because we did the previs, we knew exactly all of the setups, all of the angles. Phil and EJ just pounded through that stuff really fast.
They shot all the plates for the lumberyard sequence in 2 days, something amazing number of setups because we'd been able to previs.
We got it back here, and then we were able to assemble the scene really quickly. And then Bill actually recorded the actors doing all of the dialogue, started laying it in.
We're ready. No time to waste. Now? Before it's born?
Since then, he's brought the actors back again, had them do some more performances, which have then affected the way that some of our animation has played. So we've gone back and revisited that. It's been a really fun process.
We're outnumbered.
By a lot.
I won't let them hurt my family. The whole third act here is based on the idea that the wolves are going to surround the house, and it sort of becomes a siege movie. They're going to basically wait out the Cullens, who are already starting to feel hungry. They haven't hunted for a while. And these guys are just going to make it impossible for them to leave. And if anyone tries to, they'll be killed. And it's not only an action scene, but it's an action scene where one half of the battle is just imaginary, you know? So that was as much a learning experience as anything else for me. And it was great to have as a partner in that E.J. Forster, who had done the second unit work and stunt work on the previous movie.
Roll cameras, please. And stunts. 3, 2, 1, go!
And cut. Okay, very nice. My name is E.J. Forster. I'm the second unit director on Breaking Dawn 1 and 2. As you can see behind us, we're here at the Cullen house. We're now shooting the Cullens defending the house. Cut, right at the same time, perfect.
We were lucky to have E.J. Forster back as second unit director because we have a really good line of telepathic communication. And the key to the whole thing was planning and the choreography and just doing iterations and iterations and iterations.
Don't we have Emmett back here fighting a wolf?
He'll be over there, yeah.
Yeah, Emmett's in here with a wolf too. I need another wolf. And it's like this. Boom. Ah.
It was really the first time that the wolves have played a major part in a battle. You got the Cullens and you got the wolves, and I won't say good guys and bad guys because they're both sort of good guys fighting each other. So it's a major story point, and the wolves are really, they're characters. They're not just background animals.
The siege is just a melee. I mean, it's really kind of chaotic. We actually took, chess pieces and figured out, okay, well, how many wolves are coming from any one direction? And that was, for us, again, it was another opportunity to do something fun.
The secret to do visual effects properly is that things have to be well thought out. The visual effect has to be long, naturally, and completely behave and belong in the frame as if it was there. In order to get that, you have to know exactly what's going to happen and what interactivity is going to take place. You cannot just wing it and fix that later.
And so we were laying out the scene and trying to help everybody, the director and all the stunt guys, see it. And then meanwhile, the stunt guys are looking at the boards, they're looking at our animatics, and they're actually shooting video footage of themselves doing the stunts.
The whole choreography of the fight was very much more complicated because there were so many moving parts of eye lines, and it's just like a huge can of worms, a bunch of wolves running in and running out, and people over here, and where does this person go? And we really laid everything out, very carefully with extensive previs. The actors for the siege felt, kind of silly because in some instances, they would just, be pantomiming to air.
To simulate the wolves coming up at us, these wolves aren't exactly the wolves that you'll see in the finished product of the film. These wolves are stuffed beanbags. That's right, we wrestle beanbags. And then the amazing magicians over at the CGI Tech, they turn those beanbags into hairy, ferocious wolves. So I guess the hardest part about shooting these scenes is not laughing the entire time. Because you're like, oh, it's a beanbag, oh, I'm so scared. Oh. So, that's the real acting right there, where you're like, hey, no, very, very serious, very serious. You're like, hey, it's a beanbag. No, it's a scary wolf.
This is the famous Cullens versus the wolves. The wolves are here to do some damage to Belle and the baby. The sequence was designed by Eric Levin and Phil Tippett, and I'm helping them. We're going to do a little reference right here.
Ready, and action.
Cutting. On camera. But you know, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Yeah. Okay, let's go right away.
All right. It took a long time to shoot, but ultimately, I think that it came together really well. It's I think the most satisfying wolf action sequence that we've had in the movies yet.